So like we've got a lot of very large clients in London, which is where we started. Um, and they'd always have this pattern where 6 months into working with us, normally the COO or someone heavily in the ops would call. They'd be talking and they'd say, "Look, I don't know how you've done it, but we've not had a party booking since we started working with you." And that's because London is notorious, probably the same as big in cities in the US as well. But London's notorious for like Halloween parties, New Year's Eve parties,
Mhm.
people booking out at home and then selling tickets and turning it into raves. And London's 9 million people live in London. So you can see why there's a market for this sort of thing. And you're saying you just solved this problem because that's a premeditated party. So you're never going to go and do it in the place where they've got their eye on risk management. You're going to go and work with the people that are risking it, and that's why you shouldn't risk it because unfortunately, if you do, the problems will come to your door.
Welcome to Short Term Rental Solutions, a show for hosts and property managers looking to overcome obstacles, maximize revenue, and optimize their short term rental business by learning from the innovators who are designing the solutions that are shaping our industry. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Short Term Rental Solutions Show. You're in for a real treat because we are fortunate enough to have Leo Walton, one of the co founders of Superhog, here with us this week. And really looking forward to the conversation, getting educated about Superhog, and really helping us understand what it provides for us and the potential solution that it can be for us in our businesses. So, Leo, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Christiane. I always love hanging out and talking with you, and I always make a beeline for you whenever I see you at a conference. So very happy to be doing it today on film.
Yeah, we really it is fun. You're a great person to hang around with, and I love the whole Super Hog team. I got a chance to meet Humphrey, and so as I said, I'm really thrilled. There may be people who aren't familiar with Super Hog, and so really the goal of this show is that by the end of this podcast episode, people really understand not only, there may be people who have heard of Super Hog but don't fully understand what it does or how it could potentially help their business. So I think it's safe to say that by the end of this show, they're really going to be educated and know about what you guys do and potentially will understand if it could possibly be a good fit for them and their business. So just kind of to lead us into that, help us or introduce us to yourself and kind of how you ended up in this space and how you guys ended up creating Superhog.
Sure, yeah, happy to. So I was sat in a lecture theatre while I was still at university. And a professor said to us, "Look, 90% of the people in this room at some point in their careers are going to end up working for a company that doesn't exist today." And I thought, wow, that's quite an inspiring thought because I definitely wasn't excited by the idea of a corporate grad scheme or anything like that. I thought that's quite cool. And he said, and also 50% of you will be working in an industry that doesn't exist today. And that's when real sort of like light bulbs went off for me that, you know, change is everywhere. Change is the only constant, right? So
Right.
the idea that like new industries pop up and sprout. So I was always looking to try and work in startups. And that's what led me to working for One Fine Stay. And I joined the team in 2012. For those who don't know, One Fine Stay was at the time a London property manager, had grand designs to open in New York, Los Angeles, different parts of France, Italy, which it did, all while I was there. So I got to experience startup, scale up, growth, and finally acquisition when Accor Hotel Group bought the One Fine Stay brand. So an amazing experience for me. And what I was doing there, it was my first sort of, professional job.
Real job.
Yeah. No, I did love being a waiter. I guess I also kind of thought that, I mean, that was a fun job. But here I was, dressed a little bit smarter and sort of flogging my wares, so to speak, around London.
Yep.
My first job was to go door to door and sell the One Fine Stay solution to hosts to get them excited about putting their properties on with One Fine Stay. So what I didn't realize at the time was I was basically getting all the research I needed for my next venture when I joined Humphrey and Andrew to help start Superhog. Because Superhog exists to make hosts feel more relaxed about transacting on the short-term rental industry, right? So it's about connecting, using technology to connect guests and hosts in a safer way. And what I was doing at One Fine Stay was I was hearing what people were nervous about: parties, what happens if someone breaks something in my property,
Right.
scam, money laundering, criminals, all of the stuff that exists. And when the industry is not being the best version of itself and no checks and balances are in place and, websites don't have any security, people aren't using screening, that is the type of booking that you are likely to get at some point. And we always say doing nothing about short-term rental risk is basically accepting that at some point it's going to happen to you.
Sure.
It's going to go wrong. There's a good Warren Buffett quote, which you might have heard me say before, that it's only when the tide goes out that you can tell who's swimming naked. And that's how I feel about risk management, right? Is that you can bumble along for a while, not using any checks and balances, but eventually something will go wrong. You will be caught out. That is really, really inevitable. So fast forward, I've left One Fine Stay. I joined Humphrey and Andrew. They'd started an insurance company called Guardhog, which was designed to protect hosts against things that had gone wrong already. But the view always with them was to build software to actually stop that from happening. And that's where Superhog comes in. And the name, obviously, is we're trying to connect super hosts and guests, hence Superhog.
That's great. I remember the first time I heard Superhog, I'm like, what in the world could a company named Superhog actually do? So super hosts and guests. That's great. Thank you for shedding some light on that. But it's a great name as well because it certainly sticks in your mind once you've heard it. You don't forget it. So, all right. The solution, Guardhog, which Guardhog still exists, right?
Correct. Yeah. And Guardhog provides home cover and insurance products for the short-term rental market, normally direct hosts, but it also provides the protection capacity that sits within Superhog. So that allows us to provide a $5 million guarantee after a guest has completed the verification process. Assuming they complete it and they are accepted, we will back that booking with a $5 million guarantee. That's through Guardhog. You can also have the guarantee. You can also have the screening without the guarantee, but clearly that's an element that a lot of people choose to take from us.
Okay, so let's kind of cover that ground again. The quick version that you just said. So tell us exactly, like, when someone utilizes Superhog, what is it doing for them?
Yeah. So we are, first of all, we are able to screen their guests and tell them whether that guest has got whether the details they're using, so the name, the email, the phone number, the date of birth, the home address, have got any links to fraud or compromised emails or emails that people go and get from forums that match fake phone numbers as well. So it's like doing a sort of an authentication on their details. Is the email deliverable? So can you send an email? Is the phone number they're using a contract phone in their name, or is it a burner phone, which is risky? Does the email have social media attached to it that the phone number matches? So just building up like a digital footprint about whether this information is genuine or not, and it's likely to link to this person. And then same thing with their name. Does their name flag to the Superhog database? We do thousands of transactions every week. Does it flag to our database as someone that's caused damage in a property somewhere else in the world? Where's their IP address? So where are they browsing? Is it close to where they're looking to book? Is it a VPN? Is it a proxy server that's been used in fraud somewhere else? So we do a really deep dive check on that guest, because if you use screening, you reduce the incidence of damage tenfold. So our data suggests that in about 2% of unverified bookings, typically, so if someone isn't using screening technology, in about 2% of the cases, there'll be an incident. Might be minor, might be major. But if you put screening into your business, you reduce that to averagely 0.2%. So it's a real no-brainer, right? You spend a penny up front to save yourself $1 at the back end. Right. So that's the first thing you can do. You can screen your guests. The second thing you can do is you can also choose to have Superhog protection in place for when accidental damage occurs, or maybe the damage is malicious and deliberate because a good guest has got carried away during their booking. Usually alcohol's involved. Maybe when they went through the screening process, they didn't know that they were going to end one of their evenings on a table dancing to Madonna and find red wine all over a really expensive carpet, right? So, you can choose to have that Superhog protection of $5 million per booking for guest damage attached as well, or you can choose to not and just go with the screening. That protects you then for the big things. So anything over $500 up to $5 million. But clearly, there's more products you can add on too. And I'm sure we'll go into more details around those different products. But one of the key ones is using a damage waiver. So we think small damages, anything up to $500, is best dealt with either with a damage deposit or by charging a damage waiver. And if you use our system, you can give your guest the choice between those two things. So you can say, look, pay Superhog a damage deposit, and they'll send it back to you a week after you check out, or pay a non-refundable fee of say $50, and we won't chase you if you break anything accidentally up to $500.
Hmm.
If you give your guest the option between choosing a damage waiver and a damage deposit, in 85% of cases, they'll choose the damage waiver because they don't want to have the money held on their card. Now, I'm a father, as you well know, and my daughter really loves drawing and coloring in. So, for her, the world is her canvas. So what that
Right.
means in an SDR is that like the door is her canvas. The lovely white wall is her canvas. So if someone said to me up front, either put it down your credit card or just pay this fee, I'd pay the fee because really there's a lot of uncertainty around what you're actually going to get charged for something like that. I mean, are you going to charge me 500 because someone had to come in and paint it? Or are you just going to charge me £50 for a bit of light wear and tear? You just don't know. So to remove that doubt, people will very often want to pay a non-refundable damage waiver. And the great thing about that is that if the guest choose the damage waiver, the $50 per booking goes to the property manager and host. So
Hmm.
you're actually making money from this. You're making revenue. And typically you'll only end up paying out in about 5% of cases. So the other 95% can sit there as a fund to make sure that you have revenue. And then eventually at the end of the year, end up being put back into the business to pay for other bits of admin to do with all of this stuff. So it really is about, in our opinion, protecting yourself from 0 to 5 million. That's one of your options. And the way you do that is with a damage waiver for the first 500 or deposit, and then some more substantial protection through Superhog up to the $5 million. And what we'll do in that scenario is if your guest breaks something up to say, I don't know, let's say any amount, but let's say averagely $2,000,
Mhm.
we'll reach out and email them and say, look, you've broken this, you're liable, you need to pay $2,000. And then if they disappear and don't reply, we'll use the guarantee to pay for it. But if they do reply, and they often do, the guests will pay for their damage directly. And the reason they do that is because they're nervous about falling foul of our watch list.
Mm.
Because ultimately, good guests can sometimes go bad, right?
Right.
And when they do, they're worried about what's going to happen the next time they try and book. I always give the example because it's fair of a bachelor party where guys might get carried away and
Might?
end up having a little bit too much to drink, damage something. In the old days, they just will often walk away from that and think, well, not my problem.
Right.
Because of Superhog, we'll reach out to them and say, look, whoever went through the screening here, whichever one of you it was, the lead guest, if next time you're booking a holiday, if it's with your family, you might just get dinged and you might not be allowed to book that holiday because you've got damage in your record. And that's usually enough to make the other 10 guys say, hey, let's club together and pay for the damages. So in about 50% of cases, 50, we're able to get guests to contribute to their damage, which is amazing because in the old insurance model, that would be 0% because you don't have any leverage over that person to make act in that way. So hopefully by allowing me to, indulging me to go really deep into what it is we do, you see that for us, it's a whole process, right? It
Yeah.
starts with the book. It's about deterring the criminal, the malicious, the fraudulent booking up top by using screening technology. That screening technology can also include an ID and a selfie cross-reference if you want it to. So it's about putting tools in place to de-risk it at the top end. And then when push comes to shove, if something does go wrong, you've either got a damage waiver deposit for the small damage and a guarantee in place for the big damage.
Okay, so here I am. I mean, that sounds amazing, right? Because I've personally experienced, and for in my situation, it was a direct booking guest. We're always excited when we get a direct booking, but at the same time, that direct booking exposed me to risk that I don't know that I necessarily would have had through Airbnb or VRBO because of the way that guests get rated as well. I didn't have any of that information on this particular guest, and yeah, things went sideways and I ended up needing to paint and a bunch of different things as a result of the damages that occurred. And so I really personally can appreciate the value that this type of a service brings. But operationally, I'm also very interested in creating a very light and lean system and something that's not going to burden me down with additional steps that I have to go through in the course of having guests. So help me and others understand operationally, we, connect into Superhog. Are there additional pieces that we need to bake into our workflow? How much is automated? Like, what does that actually look like?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I love that you've gone there because it's exactly the right way to be thinking about it, right? Like, and just to go back on your point about the direct booking, clearly as a property manager, you want to take more of them, and you want to be able
Mhm.
to use the emails and phone numbers that you retrieve from guests to retarget them, right, and market to them.
Yes.
You're going to feel more confident about that if you know that's a real, verified, genuine person, and you're able to pull that information straight from Superhog. So it does. It's like take more bookings with confidence. Only have the good people, and don't think that direct bookings are risky because you can create your own risk management strategy to make sure that they're not risky. To make sure that ultimately you know who's coming in. So you're quite right. The most important focus for any property manager is making sure it doesn't affect their check-in flow, and to make sure it doesn't add work to the day to day of them or their team. So first thing I'd be saying to you is like, how deep do you want to go with your verification? Because you can do ID and selfie, but you don't need to do that to qualify for the $5 million protection with
So
us.
you can basically customize and tier it.
Yeah, so you can. So I would recommend most people, especially if you're using us for the protection, you've got the protection at the back end. Just do the intelligent guest screening because that's where we can read all that data, all those things I said to you before, and then it's a very quick process because the guest just has to give their name, email, phone number, home address, and date of birth. So it's a 15-second process, and then you push them on to the next screen where they can pay you a damage waiver and deposit. If you want to include that step, you might not. You might just have them do those five questions. We're able to then be checking things in the background, give you an instant reply, and it's very, very quick. We'll also brand that with your company's logo because we don't want them to suddenly say, who are Superhog? Why am I being introduced to someone new? We want it to be all about your experience as a property manager. So we'll brand it with your logo. The emails will be templated with your logo. You can edit those template emails to customize them to give it your own tone of voice. We send out trigger emails to if people don't start the verification process, we'll send out trigger emails to them to get them to start. And it's all connected through typically the PMS. So
Okay.
whichever PMS you're working with, almost certainly we'll have an integration with them because we've got about 40 integrations on the books. And if we don't have an integration, we'll go and do it. But that allows us to collect the guest email and phone number. And if we don't get the correct email, if it's a proxy email through an OTA, we'll send a text message. But the system will send an email first if it can, and if not, send a text message. That then starts the process, and we'll be able to send them follow-up emails from your dashboard, automated, that you can customize. And then you'll be able to log into your dashboard, as I'll show you later, and you'll be able to see the status of those bookings and whether the guest has completed the verification. The great thing about it being integrated with the PMS is typically we're able to do a two-way integration with the PMS. So you'll be able to see your verification results in your PMS. So you won't even need to log into the Superhog dashboard. Now, that's a work in progress. That's something our tech team are crunching through.
Varies, I'm sure, by PMS.
Mhm.
We love the acronyms, right? Our industry is so acronym heavy.
Yeah,
PMS, if you're not familiar with that, that's property management software. And so we're talking about like Guesty, Owner Res, Hostfully, Hostaway. I mean, literally hundreds of
300.
property
Yeah.
management software companies. But so that's what we're talking about when we say PMS. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's right. So most people will work with one, but if you don't, and you've just got one or two properties, you can just use our intelligent, a unique link that you can just embed into your email template that you send out, and that will send someone to the landing page to start the process. Obviously, what you miss out on if you don't work with the PMS is that if that person never applies or starts the process, we're not able to send those chaser emails. But
Mhm.
again, works perfectly well because you've only got one or two properties. That extra manual step isn't so much of a big deal because you can track it easier. When you get to the scaling point, 5, 10, 15, and upwards, you really need to get rid of any manual process in your
You're
day-to-day,
going to have
and
a property
it's just
management
going to slow you
software.
down. So the PMS integration, the property management software integration is probably the best way to go. And again, like I say, it allows us to have the data we need to send that verification link to start the process. But it also allows us in lots of cases and increasingly more cases push that status right back into the PMS because everybody hates having multiple Chrome tabs open on their browser. Dave, like our vision is very much that Superhog should be a back end behind the PMS, and you're able to see the screening results directly there.
Yeah, it's all about that open API, right?
Yeah, totally.
I was thinking about this the other day. The fact that there's this open API structure that's been built into so many of the solutions that our industry has actually transformed our industry as all these different solutions are tying in and connecting to each other. So, I mean, that's a whole show in and of itself, right?
It is, but it's so true that really the industry is, the winners in this industry are the people that can get connected to people really, really quickly, right? And I mean that, like, even if you're a property manager at a digital house, like, it's getting that tech stack designed in the way you want it to be. Like, you're a winner because it means that you're not working any more hours than you need to, or you're able to let it work for you. Because property management is a very difficult, it's a very difficult business, right?
Yeah.
And the way you set your system up when you have 5 properties will not work when you have 50 properties. And that journey is growing pains and ups and downs, right? That's what makes it such a fascinating space to work in.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're 100% right. It will continue to evolve as you continue to scale. So, with all that screening, what's I get an inquiry and, you know, I'm trying to decide whether or not to accept this booking. What's the time that it takes to get that information? What's the speed at which you can potentially get that information? I
Yeah.
guess
So
maybe if you don't have a confirmed booking, Superhog probably hasn't kicked in yet. I don't know.
yeah, that's right. So the good thing is that our screening checks are pretty much instant. Like, in seconds, we'll just tell you whether that information's got any fraud attached to it, or they're using false information. I also should say, because a lot of your viewers will be in the US. In some states, it's now mandatory to do a sex offender check on your lead guest. So in those states where that's the case, our system will also do that as well.
Okay.
That all happens instantly. If you're using ID and selfie checking, if someone does a blurry photo, we might need to send it to manual review, but that is rare, to be honest, because our system can mostly spot it. But we can give you pretty much instant results. It will happen after the booking has been confirmed in your OTA. So you may need occasionally, and again, it doesn't happen often because the biggest part of the screening is it's a deterrent. But when it does happen, you may need to push back on the OTA, or if it's your direct booking website, even better, because you can just cancel it yourself. So
Right.
you want to read in your terms and conditions that if they fail your screening process, you still have the right to cancel the booking. And I've never had any pushback from any of the OTAs when someone said, look, Superhog have raised the flag, you're going to need to cancel it. Everyone understands what we do. They all know perfectly well that means the right thing to do is cancel that booking. And it's usually the type of problems we will see is someone trying to use fraudulent information. That's the most common type of fraud.
Yeah. Well, and the concept of, really being able to push off the people who know that they're going to be trouble, they're completely deterred, like you were saying. In most cases, they just fail. And also the concept of, you mentioned having something in your listing, the terms that says if they fail, then you have the right to cancel their reservation. Specific verbiage that you guys can help support Superhog users with about how to make sure that that is kind of spelled out in their listing?
Yeah, absolutely. So we give templates that you can put on your listings, on your website, the terms that you can put in your terms and conditions. We'll give all that, and that's exactly it, right? Most people who see that will not try and beat the system,
Yeah.
but just a small amount of people anyway that you won't feel it. And all we have to do, right? All you have to do is stop yourself having one bad booking a year, and you've saved yourself thousands of pounds, right? And it is just that one bad. So, like, we've got a lot of very large clients in London, which is where we started. Um, and they'd always have this pattern where 6 months into working with us, normally the COO or someone heavily in the ops would call. They'd be talking and they'd say, "Look, I don't know how you've done it, but we've not had a party booking since we started working with you." And that's because London is notorious, probably the same as big in cities in the US as well. But London's notorious for, like, Halloween parties, New Year's Eve parties, people booking out at home and then selling tickets and turning it into raves. And London's 9 million people live in London. So you can see why there's a market for this sort of thing. And you're saying you just solved this problem because that's a premeditated party. So you're never going to go and do it in the place where they've got their eye on risk management. You're going to go and work with the people that are risking it, and that's why you shouldn't risk it, because unfortunately, if you do, the problems will come to your door.
Yeah, probably that percentage will shift not in your favor as far as the risk. So I'm going to recap here, make sure that, we've covered all the bases and that I understand it and the people listening to the show today. So when you think of Superhog, Superhog is going to help with the guest screening. It's going to automatically, once you're connected and set up, it's going to automatically reach out to the guests via an email and then secondarily through SMS if needed and gather the information in order to verify that that is the person who's booking is legitimate, using accurate, legitimate information, not fraud, not a burner phone, all those types of things. You have the ability to capture a selfie and additional ID, additional verification, those additional verification layers. And so I'm going to feel confident that the person who's making this reservation is legitimate. And then you're also going to layer in the ability to capture either a security deposit or a damage waiver, which we can select which of the two we prefer. And the amount that the guest pays for that damage waiver is adjustable according to what we determined that it should be. As the host or property manager, we can set that. And then you will take care of the collection of that, though. That doesn't fall to us. You guys will take care of that. And then, but typically what I think I heard you say was that's for issues in that, $0 to $500 range. And then things that fall beyond that, more expensive issues up to 5 million, which is huge, so much more than the OTAs offer for coverage that then it's not really a true insurance though, is it? I don't know. What's the terminology that you guys use for that?
Yeah, it's right. So it's definitely not a replacement for your home insurance. Like we have capacity to provide protection based on the fact that we have Guardhog, which is our insurance arm. So we're providing protection that has nothing to do with your home insurance. It's specifically designed to protect you against guests damaging things in your property. So and it's triggered after they have successfully verified. So we'd never protect an unverified booking. It's this guest is verified, which in the vast majority of cases, it will. It'll be really simple, but straight through. That then allows us to put our guarantee in place, and we'll always reach out to them and try and get them to contribute. So it is different. What you'll still need is a home insurance for if someone slips over and falls in your property and there's a liability claim, which your home insurance provider will almost certainly protect you against anyway, because that's standard in home insurance. And
Mhm.
also, like
Okay.
say a cleaner or a contractor comes in and falls over, or a tree comes through the window in a storm. That is all stuff that your home insurance protects you for. We're protecting you against that very specific risk of a guest doing something wrong in your property.
Okay. Great. And that basically, between all of that, that's the solution that Superhog provides.
Totally. And it can be very, it can be very modular. So, you can just buy for $4 per listing per month, intelligent guest screening. If you want to add ID screening on that, it's an additional $3 per month. So if you want that screening, which includes ID, it's totally $7 per listing per month, right? So it's very cost effective. Then damage waiver, we just take a $5 fee out of whatever waiver you collect. And then it's $10 per booking for the financial protection up to $5 million. So $500 to $5 million is $10 per booking. So you'll see
Hmm.
it's a really cost effective product. And
Yeah.
$10 per booking for damage protection is because we're really good at screening out the bad guys at the top. And we're really good at collecting money from guests in 50% of cases when something does go wrong. So it's a really neat product. And how great for you to be able to get your head fully out of the mediation and resolution process and leave that
Right.
to us. So all you got to focus on is those 5-star reviews. And that's another reason to do the damage waiver. The guest is going to be delighted when you don't chase them about the small damage. And it's nice to create that separation when we need to be chasing them about really significant stuff. Superhog, we're in charge, we're the mediation and resolution people, and you've passed that over to us. And that is our job. That's what we're here to do. That's the most important part of Superhog's, modus operandi, is to make sure that we're making your lives easier and protecting you and working on your behalf to solve problems for you.
Great. Awesome. Hey, I even learned a couple of things I knew about Superhog, but you filled in a few of the cracks for me as well. I think we can safely say that as a result of this show and the information that you provide us, our listeners truly understand about Superhog, what it can do. And I appreciate you sharing a little information about what it costs, because I think that sometimes people hold off because they think, oh, that's, potentially not going to be economical for my operations. But appreciate you sharing that information.
No,
So,
yeah, we're very well. I'm delighted to be given the opportunity to come and speak to your community. Anybody that comes through has listened to us today, we'll give them the product for free for 30 days, totally free to try it, cancel any time, and there'll be no charge on any of the work we do for you for 30 days.
that's great. Thank you so much. We are so Leo, has been very generous, and he has agreed to stay on with me. We are going to kind of wrap up the podcast portion of the show, and we're going to pivot and stay on, and he's going to actually take me into the Superhog backend, give us a sense of what it looks like to actually be a Superhog user. And but before we let you all go, again, thank you so much for tuning in. I want to just mention one other thing that we have for listeners here. In my work with STR Hub, one of the things that people ask, it's almost the most frequent thing that people ask, is about finding a property management software that's the best fit for them. And so in an effort to help support people, we've created a free property management selection guide. It's almost like a workbook. Within that, you're going to find information about the various features that, as I've researched companies, I've found that many of the property management software companies have. So you can quickly get educated on the various features to be looking for. And then I'm going to give you within that guide information that will help support you, help you filter down and find the handful that are likely to be a good fit for you. And then as you go have those conversations, support you in asking really intelligent questions and making sure that by the time you wrap up your calls with them, you really can feel confident knowing that you've found truly a really strong, good fit for your business. So that guide it's free on STR Hub at all times, but we're also going to put a link in the show notes here. So if that is something that you feel like you could be helped by and need support in, please, I'd invite you to go take advantage of that resource that we're providing for you as well. So thank you for joining us on the show this week. And Leo and I are going to continue the conversation. So I would invite you to also come join us over on the STR Hub YouTube channel, where you'll find all of the video content that we're going to have supplemental bonus to this conversation there as well. So thank you for joining us.
Okay, great.
So, Leo, I'm going to go ahead and let you take over the screen here and give us that sneak peek of Superhog. And again, I know I've already mentioned it, but thank you so much for all the information that you've shared. Extremely, extremely helpful.
Thank you for having me on, Christiana. Again, like it's been really great you ask great questions. So it's been nice for me to do it. Can you see
Okay. I am going to click here. There we see your beautiful family.
Lovely. Good stuff. Okay, good stuff. So let's start pulling this stuff in. So that is my partner, Jasmine, and my daughter, Sadie. And that's us on a recent trip to Venice.
Oh, beautiful.
I'm the luckiest man in the world. There you go. Here we go.
Yep. We can
All right.
now.
Great. So I'm going to start by showing you what the guest journey looks like.
Okay, I'm going to kick us off the screen. People have already seen enough of us. Let's
Yeah. When the guest clicks in, this is the first page they see. They see the option to start filling in details here. This is just a blank one because it's obviously a demo. But in actuality, this would have the property manager's branding here.
Mm.
Yeah. And in the mobile version, you don't have this. Most people use mobile to complete this, and you have the property manager's branding up here. Okay. So up top. You can obviously choose your language if you want to as well. So Spanish, Italian, French, all that sort of good stuff is in there too. So they start by filling in their details. Name. So this is where we can start checking against the Superhog database.
And that's like completely intuitive and straightforward. We're so used to filling in forms. There's almost no way a guest can go awry.
Totally. It's so fast as well, right? And then same thing, home address. So this allows us to see, and I mentioned earlier, but I can reiterate for this particular demo. So we'll check the full name against the database. We'll also check the email. Is it deliverable? Is it linked to them? Is their social media attached to that email? Linked to their name? Is the mobile phone a contract phone? Does it link to the email address? Is it in their name? So we're just checking the validity of all of this information, and it's so fast. So by the time they clicked on that screen, we're able to tell so much about them, and we're able to tell you whether they're verified or not. Also, we'll be able to see their IP address. Has it been used for fraud? Is it a proxy? Is it a VPN? Is it in illogical place?
Mm-hmm.
So, as a consumer, you're not thinking about all the checks that are happening at this point, but it's super fast, and that's what it looks like. Then home address, same thing. We're checking that against our database and our records. Done. If you're using us for the financial protection, we also then get the guest to tick the guarantee, which means that we have permission to reach out to them if they do cause damage. So this is them seeing what their liability is, which is also really good. It's a really good way of them taking it seriously and realizing that they are on the hook if they damage anything financially. So that's the guest agreement. They tick that. If you want to as well, as a property manager, you can include your own rental agreement, which we recommend you doing because we can take them to that next and they have to e-sign that document. That's a really good step because just again means that if they damage something or you're in a dispute with them, we'll be able to evidence where they've e-signed your terms and conditions. So really good. Like if they decide that they want to try and do a chargeback on their credit card because they cancel the day before they arrive, you can show the bank the contract, which they've signed that says they're not allowed to cancel 72 hours before they arrive, for example.
And can I interject here? One of the things that I feel the fact that you have that capability, something that people might not necessarily have thought about here, about the fact that they can have their rental agreement baked in, is there are some property management softwares that don't have the ability to automate the signing of the rental agreement and getting that rental agreement digitally signed.
Yeah.
So, because you can complete that step through Superhog, it potentially allows you to utilize some of those other property management software companies and still have that base covered. So, I think that that's great.
Yeah, it's a good point. I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, it's a good way of seeing it. And then if you want, you can include the ID step. So obviously this is bringing them onto mobile if they're not on mobile yet.
Mhm.
Where take a photo of their ID, which we verify, check that it's genuine, a genuine passport or driving license, and that the photo that they take matches the photo in the ID.
Mhm.
So cross-referencing, digital cross-referencing of that information. Again, that's not the most important step, but one worth doing. Then if you're doing it, damage waiver or deposit. We're showing this in pounds, not dollars. My apologies. It's an English
Okay.
standard. And this shows you that we require a security deposit for all bookings. However, there's an alternative. We offer you the option to waive your liability up to £500 of property damage in return for a non-refundable fee. And that's where you push them into this option. Obviously, they can still choose this option too. And you as a property manager can tailor how many days after the booking they get this money back. It's set here at 14, but typically property managers like to make it 7 days. So if they do choose the deposit, they're not calling you up day after day going, when are you going to refund my money? So
Yeah.
7 days is quite good and it gives you 7 days to spot the damage. Obviously, in this scenario, most people would choose this. Then you'll get £30. We would keep £5. So in this example, we're in pounds, but obviously same in dollars as well.
Yeah.
And then
And
you've got a lot of money growing to pay for any damages as and when they come along.
so and that 35 is completely editable. You can set that to whatever you want it to be,
As
correct?
names, yeah, correct. As is the deposit amount as well. So
Okay.
you might decide you want to waive. They can waive their liability up to 1,000, but it's going to cost them $50 or
Okay.
take 1,000 deposit. People do that if they've got homes that are sort of more valuable,
A
or
higher
people sometimes do that. So people might not use our damage protection program because they don't need it, or they've got some other insurance in place, but they might want to take a really large damage deposit or waiver. That's another option that you can do as well.
So one thing I forgot to ask you during the podcast, how long as a host a guest leaves, what's the window that I have to actually activate create a claim?
So yeah, you're right. In this example, it's 14 days, but most property managers choose to edit that down to 7. So basically, from the minute someone leaves the property, right up to 7 days, you can call us and say, look, they've done some damage. Hold that deposit, and if you miss that window, the deposit will be returned to them.
Okay. And then on the damage waiver, is it different? Is that window different?
Damage waiver, it doesn't matter because because it's non-refundable. You're just getting the money in the bank every time. So we'll pay you. So say, for example, you have 10 guests that go through and choose the waiver. You'd end up with $350, say, in your waiver account. We'd take $50 as our fee for all of those transactions, and you would be sent $300. And then you have that whether any damage takes place or not. And our evidence suggests that if you collect the damage waiver, 85% of the time your guests will choose it over a deposit, and you'll only have to pay out about 5% in damages versus what you collect in
Hmm,
total.
great.
And then the final stage there, it should show it's complete. So I think you'll click click the deposit, and then they put their card details in there.
Yep. Yep.
Simple as that.
Simple as that. Yeah, that's very straightforward.
And that's it, completed. So that is it in a nutshell. And that demo is a minute 36. Also, that will be shorter if you're not including things like the damage protection program. They won't have to sign the contract. You can obviously include your rental contract or not. So you can make that journey as short or as long as you want to, depending on what your focus is. When your guest has completed that, you will get will be here. So I've just created a little dummy account for us to look at.
So this is like the back end that the host would see.
Yeah. So your bookings will appear in here, and you'll be able to pull a report on the information that looks something like this.
Great.
So you'll be able to go to your guest report, and you'll be able to see that there's no flags on the guest name. So this is an example of a good one versus one where we'd be worried about. This is obviously all phony data.
Yeah.
Fake data. So no flags on this person's name. Mobile phone is not disposable, which means it's not a burner phone. You can see that it's a Verizon mobile contract phone. And these are the services linked to the number. So these are the social media we found linked to the phone number, linked to eBay, Spotify, Facebook. This is the email address. It's, in this example, it's not deliverable in this example, and there's no social media attached to it. Booking information, 1 guest, 4 days, last minute, no, property risk, low, based on those things. And then historical information. So from our own database, it's clean. There's nothing in here to show that this person has ever done anything wrong before. 0 incidents. So because of that, even though in this example, the email address doesn't have anything attached to it and looks like it's a bit unused, maybe even undeliverable based on that, because we're able to tell from the mobile phone that they've got social media, they are who they say they are, and there's no flags here, this looks low, and there's no flags from our database, we can accept the book, right? So it's not just that everything has to add up. We just need to see enough to show that that person is who they say they are.
Yeah.
Whereas in this example, it's been flagged. There's no social media attached. It's a disposable phone. It's a burner phone. It's a pay-as-you-go phone, whatever you want to call it. Still, the email is not deliverable. There's no socials attached to it. The 6 guests coming for 1 day.
Yeah.
6 guests 1 day. That looks a bit risky. It's last minute. So it looks a bit more risky. And when we look at this person's data in our database, we can see that they've broken house rules in the past 3 times, 3 incidents. So then we'd say, don't take that booking.
Right. And you get to do all that work and I don't have to.
And what you'll also be able to see as well, it's not here, it's not showing here, IP address. So, where the IP is and where in the world it is and whether it's flagged as being suspicious. So you'll get that here in your KYG report. And then what I thought we'd do is just to see it. It's
KYG, know your guest, right?
Know your guest, yeah. So these are all the integrations we have. So if you're working with any of these PMSs, property management softwares, you can click through, type in your API code with them, or whatever they call it, whatever the PMS calls it. And you can, so all of these providers here, you can, and you'll be able to pull your properties straight in to your account and they'll appear down here.
A quick and basically you're taking one little string of code and pasting it in there and you're done. You're connected.
And if you're not working with a PMS, you just manually create your listings.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you're not working with a PMS, you probably only have 1 or 2 listings anyway, so this won't take you long. But you just create a listing wherever you are, and you can build it. This is actually where I live. So if anyone wants to come and stay in London, there you go. You have my address.
Thanks for the invite.
Anytime, guys, anytime. And we'll say 4 bedrooms, and then there. And then we'll put the host as me. We can just click through. Fine. It's fine. And then activate. There you go. So you've got a property live.
Yeah.
You can your deposit waiver funds default. because that you obviously got your standard waivers on there. You've not customized it. But if you wanted to customize it, we at the back end could change the waiver plan. So if you want 5 properties, you might want one of them with a $20 waiver and one with a $50 waiver, one with a $100 waiver. You can customize all of that. And then you can go in here. If you're not working with a PMS, you can add your bookings in here straight away. You add your booking, create a booking. Again, if you're working with a PMS, this will all be automated, but you can just send your guest details here and it will send the verification link to your guest to start the process.
Yeah.
But you can also just go here and do it this way.
Out of curiosity, this is making me think, do you guys, or is it in the works? Someone who might not have a PMS, but they're using Airbnb. I'm thinking it would be great if the integration could exist where it just pulled them straight from Airbnb, that direct to OTA integration.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's always something we'd be looking to do. We always want to add new integrations into our stable. I guess we're finding that, I guess you always move to what your customers are prioritizing, right? So like our tech roadmap and our product upgrade or suggestions column is filled with what our customers are asking for. And the vast majority of them, and increasingly so, are working with a bit of software and are tapping into the idea they can work across more than one OTA. That's generally what we're seeing. But you're quite right. There should be a use case for someone who's just that Airbnb host.
Well, and that's a really interesting question here. Like, is there anything new on the horizon that you guys are excited to be bringing, or
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you asked me about that. So we've got, I should have probably mentioned it when I was showing you the guest journey, but we also want to give property managers the opportunity to provide their own cancellation cover. So cancellations are something which, you have to adhere to the OTA's policies. And if you're working across multiple OTAs and your own direct booking website, it's impossible to have a homogeneous process because each OTA is different, and you might feel like you've got to get bookings. You might need to have a cancellation policy you're not happy with, or you just say, do you know what? I'm going to ignore what the OTA says and I'm just going to keep it strict. What we're going to build for you is an addition to the guest journey where the guest can tick to buy a cancellation protection. And if they activate it, you as a host will still retain all of your money for the booking, and the guest will also get paid out 100%, but Superhog will wear the risk and pay for the loss of revenue.
Oh, well, that is great. I'm excited for you guys to launch that. I think a lot of other people will.
Yeah, it's a good product. We've been working at it for a while because obviously it's really important to us to put something out to market that is actually useful, right? So it can be used across OTAs, across direct bookings. It's whatever you want, but it means that you can have a risk-free cancellation protection, and your guests can also pay a fee to us to also get all of their money back, and everybody wins.
Everybody wins.
Everybody wins in this, but we've taken our time doing it. We've had people have wanted us to do this for a number of years, and we've really taken our time to do it right. The other thing we're bringing out is a rescheduling tool, which is a bit lighter, a bit simpler. If right now as a host, somebody was to call you and say, I would like to reschedule my dates, the likelihood is you would do it. You would let them reschedule. And if there was any increase in the rate based on when they were booking, they'd pay the extra to you, the seasonal increase extra. But you'd likely do it. We're going to add a button into the journey, which will allow that guest to have a flexible rescheduling booking. So you as a property manager pick how many days before the booking they're allowed to activate it. So you might say, you can reschedule any time up to 15 days before the booking or 30 days before the booking. And then you charge them a fee for that rescheduling, say $25. We take a small handling fee. You're then getting paid whether they reschedule that booking or not. So you're receiving $22.50 every single time someone clicks that option. And when they do then come to you and say they want to reschedule, you're only rescheduling on terms you would have rescheduled on anyway. But it just makes it an even better situation for you to be in, because you're basically making money from being extra flexible to your guests. And your guests love it because that's an option they're choosing. You're not forcing them to take it. You're just giving them an extra choice, and guests love choice.
They do. I love this. This is great. Wow. People who chose to come over and take advantage of the bonus content option here, they're definitely going to get a few different, not only get a sneak peek, but the scoop on what's coming with Superhog.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think for us, it is always about trying to listen to our customers and build products that they want. So cancellation, flexible rescheduling, things that mean that they're not beholden to the policies of another business, typically an OTA. They are in control. Like, remember, put your rental agreement in your guest journey, have your own cancellation terms, have your own damage protection, and lots of ways you can monetize things through damage waivers, through rescheduling tool, or also if you work on behalf of owners, putting a small commission on the damage protection that you put in place for them. So it's about putting you in control, putting some money in your pocket instead of money coming out the other way, and ultimately making your bookings safer.
Yeah. Yeah. Leo, thank you so much. I appreciate the time that you've spent with us and the things that you've shown us and the education that you've given us about Superhog. So just absolutely fabulous. And hey, if as you guys continue to roll out these things, we'll be happy to have you back on the show potentially and give us an update as things move along. But thank you again, everybody who joined us on the podcast, who maybe came over from to YouTube from there, but everybody who's joined us here on the video portion of the show. So glad to have you. And be sure that you make time to join us for our next episode where we'll be talking to the innovators who are designing the solutions that are shaping our industry.